played it very, very, very well indeed.
No more slices for you.
Oh, look at that for judgment.
You'll learn.
Sam, he did it. He actually did it. Rory McIlroy won the Masters last night, about 13 hours ago, to be precise. He actually somehow finally got over the line, ended the major drought, joined golf's best and most exclusive club, confirmed himself the best of his generation, maybe the best European of all time, certainly one of the best players of all time, and all by a single shot. Where do we begin? I don't know.
It was decent, wasn't it? It was decent. I think let me just say, this goes back to our first episode, Ben, and your one wish for this year was you said you wanted it to be a good Masters, and you said specifically, and I listened back today because I wanted to hear your words. You said specifically, I want us to not know the identity of the winner when the final group are on the 18th tee. And we got exactly that, didn't we? 18th tee. I mean, obviously, at that point, you're thinking Rory should win this. But we didn't know, did we? And it was, it was brilliant. I do try and be wary of recency bias, but I struggle to think that it's not the best final round I've ever watched.
No, same. And look, if I'd have extended that wish, you don't ask for too much when you're begging the golfing gods in January for the year ahead. But if I had extended that wish, it would have had an outcome as well. And the outcome would have been Rory McIlroy to win the Masters. We got everything. I mean, obviously, I was hoping for. Now we can sort of celebrate the final round for what it was, and the fact that it will go down as one of, if not the single greatest Sunday of any golf tournament that has ever been played. I know what you've just cautioned against is reasonable, and we've had great ones, but. Oh boy, I don't think anything's come close to that in my lifetime. And now we can relish that. Now, I'm afraid, and I know we'll have slightly different feelings on this, I would have been devastated had Rory McIlroy not won. I think you'd have taken more sort of from the consolation prize than I would have. I would have been pleased for Justin Rose, obviously, but not. I would have not. I don't think I'd be here sitting talking to you. I'll be honest. I think I'd be in bed. So we can now celebrate the fact that we didn't just get what I had hoped for and what we were long overdue, but we got the thing we really were long overdue. Yeah. It's amazing. It is amazing that Rory McIlroy. The thing for me is we can stop talking about it. He's great sports people. They have to answer some really difficult questions, and those questions they usually come at the end of your career. I think about Roger Federer as probably the best other example of my lifetime outside of golf. Obviously, inside of golf, it would be Tiger Woods. And the ones that are able to answer the question, it's not a coincidence that those are the names who've answered that question. Tiger did it, Federer did it, and Rory did it.
The greats.
Novak Djokovic has done it. They're just greats. They are not just great. They are greats. It would have been such a shame if he hadn't done it. And if he hadn't done it yesterday, we'll never know, will we? But boy, there's one thing being resilient and coming back from Pinehurst and Portrush and everything else. But if he hadn't done that yesterday, I don't think what his future would have been like. It's not worth thinking about. So yeah, it was good, Sam. It was good.
That is what I feel like we should do. Let me know if you disagree. I think it'd be quite good to go through Rory's round, not necessarily hole by hole, but certainly the key moments and how it kind of panned out, because I think it was fascinating. I mean, it was a real roller coaster. It's quite funny actually, because Rory talked about, didn't he? I think in the weeks leading up to the Masters, how he wanted to be more sort of Scheffler-like, or play a bit more sort of boring, and it was anything but that. Let's start at the beginning. I mean, in his press conference afterwards, he said about the fact that he was feeling extremely nervous. He was very open about that. And he, obviously he came out, it actually didn't look to me like a terrible drive. It just caught the bunker, didn't it? So it wasn't a bad shot by any means. Bryson's was a lot worse as it happened. I thought, as sort of snap hook. But a double bogey straight out the gate. Bryson purring. You're going from a 2-shot lead to level, and that's. I mean, I can't imagine what he was feeling walking off that hole. But he said I felt like the pressure was lifted. In his press conference afterwards, that was, he didn't have that feeling anymore. It's gone, and that I think is fascinating, and really then that kind of almost allowed him to reset. And obviously, of course, the following hole, he makes another bogey, and you're thinking, this could really rapidly turn into an absolute horror show. But it's but from there on, I mean, I'll let you take the next section. But at that point, I know I got a message from a group that I was sort of watching it with, sort of on WhatsApp, and one of these guys was like, "I'm going to go to bed now. This is done." And I said, half maybe maybe I was being optimistic at this point, but I said maybe he just needs to go behind. Maybe he just needs to be chasing again, and then he can play a sort of the gutsy golf that he's best at. But yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, then the third hole, I think the sort of low key, one of the most important shots Rory McIlroy played in that final round was the chip to the third. Because if you get that wrong, it's back at your feet. And then I think it's over. And he played it into the bank, didn't he? He didn't fly it up on top where you can be sure that it's going to at least get there, albeit risking going through the other side. Yeah, he that chip shot was... I honestly don't know how they do it. And this isn't just McIlroy. Like, how do they do it? I know they've been doing this for... In his case, 30 years almost, he's been hitting shots and learning to play this game regardless of the situation, almost. But I don't know how they stand, let alone hit the shots of that quality. And everything at Augusta is on a knife edge, isn't it? Everything. And even then, I think back to that putt on 3, it's so nearly missed on the low side. It's so nearly missed, and it just didn't. And then obviously that will have relaxed him a lot. And then on 4, I mean, I think...
Well, relaxed obviously by the fact that Bryson bogeyed. I should correct myself actually. Sorry, Rory didn't bogey the second hole, did he? He parred it, but of course it was a par 5. It sort of feels like a bogey, doesn't it, if you're parring that hole? But I think the fact that Rory made birdie on 3 and Bryson bogeyed it at the same time, that was suddenly really rapidly, everything changed in that instant, I felt.
Yeah, absolutely. And because Bryson had made 2 really good putts the first 2 holes, and he really looked like he couldn't miss, didn't he? So the 3 putt down the hill was pretty clumsy. It's interesting that he played the way he did. I don't think we should sort of retrospectively sort of strategize on their behalf and pick holes in only the losers. But he did play a little bit defensively at times. His biggest weapon is his driver. And usually, certainly there are places and there are courses where so good is that driver that it can overcome the fact that he does have a tendency to hit a few destructive approach shots. Like, he doesn't seem to have that hold-up shot that Rory has developed. Everything's coming in sort of right to left, and it's hard to control for him. And to lay back on 3, maybe the first of many little things that didn't go well for him. Obviously it was a bad day for Bryson in the end, but that, as they teed off on 3, he was obviously favourite, and walking off the back of that after the 3 putt, and then obviously Rory's got the honour as well, and the shot Rory played into 4, and again that's a good example of it. He hit, I think whoever was it, Radar or someone else said, look, it's a lot of club and maybe he's going to massage it in there, and he did. And I think Rory was actually thinking this might not cover the bunker. And at the moment that it has covered the bunker, it's good. And again, that putt on 4 only just went in the side door. And I'll take us through 5 as well while I'm here. I mean, 5, the sort of high right shoulder miss we see with Rory, and when it's one of the only times I think the microphones picked him up saying, "Oh no." And I think he probably thought that was a lost ball. It stayed in play, didn't just stay in play, but he had a route through to the green. And he sort of found the back edge, and it was tough, but he made a really good up and down. And that's, again, as we go here, I suppose we can touch upon little bits of more statistical analysis, which is really not what's important today. But in the end, everybody towards the top of that leaderboard was good around the greens. And McIlroy was one of them. McIlroy lost strokes putting and won the Masters. But he was dynamite around the greens, save for the chip on Thursday. So yeah, we walk off the back of 5, and it's almost, to me at that point, it felt like, right, now it's time to start counting holes. That was my right. What have we got then at that point? 13 to go, 12 to go, and so on and so forth. I thought this is how we do this. We count the holes, and for as long as the gap is at least 2 and we're ticking off holes, we're going to be okay.
Yeah,
I think
for me, one of the next sort of really, really big moments, I think, was 7, wasn't it? Where I think at that point the gap I believe was 3, so it was, he was in good place, but he hit a bad tee shot. Sort of looked like he was blocked out by the trees, and then he hits this incredible shot, which felt like it was in the air for about a minute. You're just sort of waiting for it to land. Thinking, has it already landed? We've just not heard it, and and then it drops down right by the hole, and obviously he doesn't in the end make that putt as it happens, but the just that moment, and you got the sort of reaction from him, sort of like laughing. It felt like almost a sort of boyish joy was back.
It was a big release, wasn't it? I think for him, like, there must have been so much tension still because he hadn't played 5 or 6 that well, and it probably right now we're into the round now, and there was a release of tension there, and it's one of those occasions or instances where the camera can't follow the ball. The cameraman's got no idea where that ball's going. He doesn't know where and it's one of those great ones where they go, okay, let's just pan wide and we'll see if we can find it. And the way we, the viewer, find out what has happened is the crowd. And you're either getting the almost sort of, it's come up short in the bunker. You're getting like a murmur of like, oh my word, it's hit a cart path and gone trundling down the next hole. And you just got that awed sound from the, and then you start looking near the hole and you see how close it was. And obviously he dribbled the putt. He left the putt short, didn't he? But a magical shot. And anything could have gone wrong there. And how many of those did he hit last week? How many shots did you see McIlroy hit through a window? And how great is it to see golfers presented with the opportunity to show us what they can do? Because there's no doubt, I mean, we weren't there, but there is no doubt that 1-on-7 was touch and go. He was like, I think I can do this. I think there's a window. And that alone, and having the golfer be able to take that shot on and make that decision, is so much about what makes Augusta great. That shot in most tournaments does not happen, and
that's true.
It's great that it did.
And he talked about the fact that was the best shot he hit yesterday. I mean, I possibly contest that there may be one that was better than that, but in his mind, I think maybe he couldn't see the shot as much. Maybe it felt like more of a, not, I don't want to say hit and hope, but maybe it felt like there was more luck involved with that. But either way, that was a huge moment. And I have to say, and it sounds easy to say in hindsight, but I remember thinking at this exact point, hold it a second. Every round, and not just Rory, but everyone, there's some point where things just take a bit of a dip, right? There's you never get this sort of, or very, very rarely do you get this thing where someone pulls ahead and they just keep going ahead, further ahead. There's at some point something goes slightly wrong, and of course there was, a bit of a wobble, shortly after that. I mean, well, actually, so he birdied 10, didn't he? So he birdied 10. I think at that point he was 5 shots clear.
9 and 10. So 9 he birdied.
9 and 10, exactly. 9 and 10.
Bryson was just inside him and missed. And that, 9 put him in command, and then 10. I mean, 10 felt like the game over to me. How foolish we were, but 10 really felt like a massive moment, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And I think even really, if you go on to 11, then, and I think this is for me one of the biggest moments really and he actually, Rory, again, he talked about the fact that he felt like he got some lucky breaks. You need luck to win, which I think everyone acknowledges. And I think one of the potentially lucky ones, you could say on 11, where his ball came up, looked like it could very easily have gone in the water. How many times over the years have we seen those shots just kind of creep into the water, and it just hung up on that flat? Even Rory said that he thought it was going to go in. And then, of course, Bryson hits his in the water, straight away after that. Rory ends up making a bogey, but because of Bryson's mistake at that point, and he's still his closest contender at that point. I think Oberg had moved possibly level with Bryson at the same point, but because of that had happened at the same time, it just felt, again, it was like, this is going well. Even when Rory's making mistakes, other people are as well. It sort of felt a bit like last year where everyone sort of fell off at the same point, didn't they? When it looked like Scheffler there might be a window to beat him. So
yeah. I mean, Obo bogey 12, didn't he? And it was a case of, and it takes you back sort of to the leaderboard after round 3. So the gap from Rory to anyone bar Bryson or Corey Connors was very wide. 6 shots back to anybody else. Data Golf did a really cool graphic about like what score, what chance does he have with each score, and he had a chance even if he shot 75 or something. There was in the end it would have been too short, but that cushion was really key. It wasn't quite, although in the end there was a convergence like right behind him of a few players. It wasn't quite when I was talking before the tournament where you've got 6, 7 different players. Like if we talk about who we really felt could win the Masters during that back nine, actually that is not a long list. I think really you're talking Rory, Justin Rose, and Ludwig Åberg. I don't really. I suppose Patrick Reed, when Patrick Reed's got 3 feet for birdie on 13.
Yep, just about.
At that moment, you'd have given him a squeak, but at that moment, of course, Rory hadn't done what he went on to do. But
yes,
first to 12th, I mean, the shot to 12 was great, wasn't it?
Yes.
Straight over the bunker. Just
it's
a big
good
sigh of
save
relief.
shot.
Yeah. And I think I can't remember who it might have been some golfer who wasn't playing or had finished tweeted that if he can just... Actually, I think it was Jordan Spieth. I think Jordan Spieth had just finished and was speaking to the media, and he was asked about Rory because obviously he's pursuing the Grand Slam as well, let's not forget. And he said, well, if he can just get pars at 11 and 12, I think he'd be fine. And of course, he didn't par 11, but with the mistakes that you've already alluded to, it felt like a par, didn't it? It was a perfectly good score. And then he steps onto 13, and, the tournament is his to lose at this point. There is no doubt about it.
Yeah, it's extraordinary, really, 13. And, that shot, I think, there was an audible groan. I watched it around a friend's house. We both sort of audibly groaned as he hit that pitch into the creek. And it felt like, wow, this is a mistake that you just couldn't see happening. There was a safer shot there. I don't know. It felt... At that point, it was like, surely not. This can't be happening, right? That was the way I felt. I was like, this cannot be happening. But you're still thinking, okay, you know what? You can get away with a double bogey. He's still got a little bit of a margin. But what's going to be the reaction to that? To making that huge mistake.
Yeah, all of a sudden, even everything. The conditions were quite good yesterday. The pins on the closing few holes, bar really 16. But even then, if you did get the right number, there is a little, ball's the wrong word, but there's a corner of that green and a bit of a backstop beyond the pin. But and certainly the pins on 17 and 18 were gettable. But all of the thing is, all of a sudden, when you've got to make birdies, it's a different... We've talked about it before. I think we talked about the Sony Open. I didn't expect to mention the Sony Open today. There are so many holes on that back nine where on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, you think, yeah, there's probably 2 or 3 good birdie chances these last 5 holes.
Yeah.
But when you need them and when something's gone wrong to upset the rhythm of a player and the magnitude of the situation, be that a Sony Open to JJ Spawn or the completely different stratosphere of what Rory McIlroy was having to deal with, there are no easy birdies. There just are not any easy birdies. It's not, oh, it's okay, there's a par 5 coming up. And then, of course, what changed with that? I mean, for me, it's the single most shocking shot I think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen a shot that I was completely gobsmacked by. I could see Rory stumbling and making mistakes. Like, I wanted to say, like, on Twitter, like it's impossible for any of us really to think how he must feel in this moment. This is history he's playing for. This is so hard. The simple is so hard. But even knowing that, even thinking that, the idea, I could have seen, for example, him leaving that wedge 40 feet on top of the slope left and 3-putting and making a clumsy 6. But to put it in the creek, I could not. 1,000 shots. My wife very kindly humoured me this morning and asked me to give her a brief sort of synopsis. I think I went too long at about 2.5 minutes. But anyway.
Doesn't sound like you did.
No, I know. I didn't tell her to read the column. But I said to her, in a normal situation, you give him 1,000 balls, he would never hit that shot. It was just truly shocking. And the thing that compounded it is that this is when Rose was starting. Rose had gone birdie, bogey, birdie, hadn't he? And then he'd hit his shot in close on 16 and left himself like the perfect uphill 5-foot birdie putt that you almost couldn't miss. So all of a sudden, McIlroy, at the very least, has to play the final 5 holes of the Masters in level par. Anything worse, and you almost certainly can't win. It might not be enough level par.
I know, and then of course, you go a hole on 14th hole, hits a slightly skew-iff drive, not a terrible one, but just right enough that he was in the pine straw and left himself with a very difficult second shot, which was he did as good as he probably could in the circumstance. It was just off sort of shore right, wasn't it? played a decent pitch to, I want to say it was probably about 8 feet or something.
Yep.
But it was never an easy putt, and again, the pressure's being compounded at that point. With I don't know how much he would have known about what Rose was doing at that point, but
very hard to avoid at Augusta, isn't it? I think. I mean, I've not been there, but the sense there are a lot of leaderboards, and the crowd noise carries around that course. I think it'd be very hard to avoid. It would have been so much more difficult, I think, though, had it been Bryson doing the scoring. Had it been Rory losing his lead, now Bryson's level with him playing 14.
Watching the person he's playing with draw level, I think that would have changed the dynamic for sure. And then, I mean, let's talk about. So for me, this is the highlight of the night. 15, decent drive, but leave himself a bit of work to do with the second if he wants to get it on the green. And the shape that he put on that shot, it was just, and I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday, the fact that, I think we take for granted the fact that we get shot tracer on these shots because, back in the day, you'd see the strike, you'd watch it land, and you think, oh, yeah, that's a good shot. But that was an amazing shot, and in the circumstance, and I think the thing that I wanted to mention here, which I think is fascinating. So coming off the second hole, that's the first time that he lost his lead to DeChambeau, right? He immediately responds with a birdie on the next hole. The only other time that he lost the lead was on standing on the 15th tee, that he'd actually lost his lead. He was one behind at that point. And what does he do? He produces, well, what could maybe even should have been an eagle, but an eagle-worthy shot, and he makes birdie. So the two times he's gone behind, he responds in the best possible way. And again, it comes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's that maybe it's a different feeling when you're chasing as to when you're trying to protect a lead. Even for someone like McIlroy, who's won, 40 plus times around the world, there's still a different feeling trying to protect a lead or trying to hold on to one than it is when you're trying to actually, I need to birdie this hole.
I think that's it. It's the definitive nature of it, isn't it? It's the here is what I must do versus here is what maybe this will do. Maybe this will be enough. Had he been 2 shots ahead on 15, that might be the places ball land might be the perfect spot for us to really say that we have no idea whether he'd have gone for the green or not, because it was close enough, the shot was doable, but it was not easy. The risk was high, and the layup was easy. The pin being further back means that the wedge into, if you have laid up, is easier. But he knew he had to make birdie, and he really did have to birdie 15. I think he'd have known on some level that if I don't birdie 15 here, I've just gone double bogey. I've dropped 4 shots in 4 holes. If I do not arrest the slide here, that is it. It is over. Yeah. And to hit those 2 shots, and the drive was great, but the second shot, my word. I mean, obviously the putt was bad. To miss that on the low side, the putt was not good. But even so, that second shot was right up there. I think, people have put it up with the Tiger one from, was it 2001? I always remember Sergio's when he made eagle on 15 against Justin Rose. Justin Rose had every reason not to like the 15th hole, I suppose. And by the way, how close did he come to eagling both 13 and 15, Rose? Really, really close to doing that. Rory had to make birdie, which he did. It probably should have been eagle. I think he did well again to shrug off the disappointment of not making the eagle putt when he came to 16, because that approach shot again, and look, I'll say it again, he led the field in strokes gained approach. He led it by 2 shots total to Hideki Matsuyama, so he was by 2 shots the best iron player in the field. I think it's probably fair to say, now I've not gone back and looked at this, I imagine that will be the best iron play performance of his career, and in the end, the thing that has won it for him. It's the approach shots, and it usually is at the Masters, and that's why Bryson DeChambeau couldn't hang around. Ultimately, you have to hit great approach shots. The players who ranked 1st and 3rd finished 1st and 2nd, but Rory was out on his own in 1st. Yeah,
and then on to obviously 17th hole, which again for me was one of the biggest highlights of the night. His second shot into 17 was again brilliant, and again he's tied for the lead at this point. Again he needs to produce something, or at least he needs to produce something if he wants to win outright, and he's definitely not playing for a playoff at that point, right? And he produces an incredible approach shot again, on 17. It's not an easy hole, I don't know what the average, what it was playing to yesterday, but that those closing 2 holes, and neither of them are easy to birdie. So yeah.
Well, the other thing that really brings home to me, I'm just checking so it played 0.2 strokes over par, and there were 9 birdies in total on that hole yesterday.
Yeah.
9 birdies and one somebody holed out for eagle, presumably someone I'd bet against in a 2-ball. The other thing, and I always remember Danny Willett alluding to this, and I don't know, on commentary there was some confusion as to whether Rory was going to hit 7 or 8 for that. And the consensus was that he'd hit a hard 8. And he certainly, given that he hit a sort of strong draw, I would imagine whatever the choice was, whether it was 6 or 7, 7 or 8, 8 or 9, it was the shorter club, and he just pounded it. But just the fickle nature of golf. And I know you could do this sort of macro analysis of every single shot, and that's why we have 4 rounds, 288 holes. 72 holes, 288 shots to shoot level par. That's why we have golf played over a period that it is played over. But Danny Willett always alluded to the fact that on his Masters Sunday, he just landed on the number. All day long, he landed on the number. Every club in his hand felt right. And Rory, his tee shot on 17 wasn't particularly good. It was like a bit tentative, a bit more fade than he would definitely have been hoping for, a bit more weak and to the right, a bit further back. But he's landed in an upslope on a number where he can hit a hard, high draw. And I think back to, I think it was a Titleist advert about 12 years ago. And it's all these golfers sort of going through their favourite shot. And there's a clip of Lee Westwood actually says, I hate the high draw. And then the next cut is Rory going, I love the high draw. And that's his shot. That is the Rory McIlroy shot. It's the shot that not everyone can hit. To hit it that high, land it that soft, and get it just trickling out to 4 or 5 feet. Those are the things not everyone can do. But he just landed on the number. If he'd have been 10 yards further and he's trying to massage a fade 8 iron or 7 iron, it could have been different. He could have left it in the bunker or anything. What a shot that was. What a shot.
That was fantastic. Of course, then you have, you've got the situation where it's his tournament to lose, right? He's going on to the 18th tee with a 1-shot lead and hits a good drive.
It was a great drive. I'm upgrading.
Okay, sorry, I'm downplaying it. A great drive. Unfortunately, the approach didn't quite match up.
It was garbage.
Do we have 2 different styles, don't we?
I guess so.
But I said to the guy I was watching it with, I said, McIlroy is one of the best bunker players in the game, right? He's going to put this to kick-in range, and he pretty much did. Pretty much, but it was just it was slightly longer than the Pinehurst putt. I feel like slightly.
Yeah, it was longer.
Less break, but longer. But it's again trying to make that sort of putt to achieve what he needed to achieve. Maybe it's no surprise that he missed out. I don't know, but I think everyone again, the groan in the crowd sort of said it all, didn't it? And you're sort of thinking, oh, God, please no. But then at the same time, we talked about it a minute ago, but for me, I'm kind of thinking, I can't really, in my right mind, I can't pull against Justin Rose. I mean, this is a guy, maybe one of my favorite players of all time, and, he's, everyone's talking, obviously the narrative is all around Rory, right? And it makes sense. Of course it is. Everyone wants him to complete the Grand Slam, me included. But, poor old Justin Rose there. He's trying to win the green jacket. It's a lifelong dream of his as well to win the green jacket, right? And he's been close twice. Justin Rose, 17th hole has been so cruel to him over the years. 2007 when Zach Johnson won, right? It was 2007. I think it was 2007. Anyway, when Zach Johnson won, he hit it. Sliced it right into the trees, made double bogey. So he was 1 shot back at that point. He was basically the last remaining contender at that point. Then, obviously, against Sergio, 10 years later, he made a bogey on that hole, having hit it in the greenside bunker, and then he bogeyed it again yesterday. Now, you and I talk about this all the time, don't we? The fact that maybe he passed 17. who's to say that he then still birdies 18? He might not have done. So you can't say, oh, if he'd have only parred 17, he would have won the tournament. You can't say that. But he will. He can't have much love for the 17th hole at Augusta, is all I'm going to say.
No. Only he knows how he really feels, I suppose. But if he had to lose the Masters in that way, I do think Justin Rose would take some extra comfort from who he lost it to, the manner he lost it. He went down fighting, didn't he? He made 10 birdies yesterday, and all the mistakes he made really were just mistakes that happened. They weren't a man who was for whom the moment was too big. It was just the drop shots happened from the positions he was in off the tee and what have you. And how can you not admire someone who, in his mid-40s, his best days behind him, who has got up and contended for 3 of the last 4 majors? It's phenomenal to be able to do that, to be able to lock into something for 4 days that you didn't know you had coming into the week. And for me as well, again, this is what we're talking about at the start. Now that it's happened and now that McIlroy has won, we can celebrate all that made yesterday brilliant. But one of the enduring images will be the way they embraced on the 18th green. And I'm not, I wanted to actually defend Bryson a little bit because there's a clip doing the rounds where he said Rory didn't talk to him and comes across a bit petulant. I mean, Bryson is petulant, so not surprising that it comes across that way. But he did say in his press conference, I could have cried for Rory on the 13th. Like I don't think, I don't think we should rush to paint him as the enemy yesterday.
That interview was clipped up, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was clipped up into those key points that they wanted to bring out. But yeah, that doesn't come across. I don't think that really did him justice, to be honest. But
no.
Re Justin Rose, it was an amazing moment. And actually, what he said afterwards, in his press conference, it was like, that it was amazing. It was great to witness that, to be part of that moment, and how good is that? How gracious is that from Justin Rose? He's always been someone you say, if you say, give me someone who's just a real class person and golfer, Justin Rose would always be up there. And I think he proved it again yesterday. And I think the amazing thing is, if you'd have asked, if you'd have surveyed 100 golf fans going into the final round and said, right, who can legitimately win this tournament from here? I don't think anyone would have said Justin Rose, and me included. And I'm one of his biggest fans. I mean, genuinely, you kind of think, okay, he's same age as me, right? You're thinking he is up against it here. Everyone expected, a lot of people expected him to start well, first round lead. Quite a few people had a bet on him first round leader or still there at halfway point. Okay, yeah, we can see that happening. You just expect him to drop off over the weekend, and he did. He obviously had a bit of a drop off on Saturday, but for him to come back like that on Sunday, play the joint best round of the day, with Matsuyama, and give himself a very legitimate chance of winning the tournament is phenomenal. It really is.
Absolutely,
I so much admiration for him.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully it's the springboard. We spoke to Paul McGinley, 2 weeks ago, and we talked about the algorithm and how it's upgrading people who've got experience. And you can guarantee that Justin Rose is now on the Ryder Cup radar in a way which he probably wasn't. I know that's, none of that matters. He's not going to wake up this morning and think, well, Beth Page, he's going to wake up with really mixed emotions. And like Shane Lowry on Saturday, like these are professional athletes, they're competitors, like their first priority is to try and win this thing. But if just as Shane was there, what did he shoot, 81 or 83 or something, and he was just thrilled to welcome McIlroy off the back of that green. As I say, I think Justin Rose really will have appreciated being there. And I think he would have felt really bad if he'd won, actually. In a way, it would have been bittersweet. He would have talked about it afterwards, that he hates being the one to, hates being the Stuart Sink, if you like.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I was going to say, that's the thing that people are saying, he would have been the Stuart Sink, wouldn't he, in that moment? And he wouldn't want to be that. But at the same time, it comes back to, I don't think I would have felt like that had he won it. It would have been devastating for Rory, of course, but how amazing would it have been for Justin? And I'm done with us underestimating Justin Rose. We had this thing, didn't we, when we were making our Ryder Cup early selections? We didn't even mention him. I can't. I want to turn back time and change that, because clearly he's in the conversation. But I underestimated him then. Underestimated him, in my head at least, going into the weekend at the weekend at the Masters, and he keeps proving me wrong. And one of the things I was sort of thinking afterwards, this is his last. It's going to be his last chance to win Green Jacket. Who's to say it is his last chance? He could come back next year and do the same again, and it wouldn't actually surprise me now after what he's done. He's mid-40s, but he's obviously, there's something about him that he can raise his game in the majors. You talked about it last week, didn't you? You look at his record last year. He had, I don't think he had any other top tens, did he? The whole year, apart from two in the majors. There's something about the big stage that brings out the best in some players, and he's one. But Ben, we probably need to talk about a couple of other things, because as we know,
Nat, you're in charge of this podcast. You know that, right? But I think in our move to talk about Justin Rose on the 18th green, we didn't actually talk about the playoff. So we seem to have ended on Rory's missed putt. So
you make a good.
All I want to say on that is Justin Rose's shot. First of all, his approach shot to 18 was unbelievable.
Yes.
Actually, if it had run further up the slope, it would have come back. But the advantage in being 20 yards closer is so big. Rory was hitting a 3/4 gap wedge. I don't know what Justin hit, but it was a shot that came in with less spin. Anyway, what can I say? We probably said enough about Rory McIlroy now, and I know people will say, well, actually, when you get in a playoff, it's actually a bit of a relief, because you know that's it now. It's just you and the person alongside you and whatever. He's just missed a 5-foot putt to win the Masters. He has blown it in so many ways. In 3 or 4 moments in that round, he has potentially found a new way to lose a golf tournament he should have won. It's the third major in the last 4 years for which he'd been odds on, but so much more in his hands than the previous 2 had ever been. And he came out onto that playoff hole again, and he hit it to 3 feet. And I almost think the quality of those 2 shots was somewhat lost in the relief of them. But I can't tell you how much admiration I have for him to be able to hit those shots. And a quick word as well for his caddy. Try not to get emotional here, but to grow up, they met when they were 7 years old. I think Harry's a year or 2 older. I think any of us can imagine growing up with someone, and then 30 years later, the single best moment of your professional life. I mean, for most of us, it's not how our professional lives work, right? They're entirely separate from our friends. Probably the biggest thing we can equate it to is best man at our wedding or whatever it may be. But in Rory's world, it's fine that people have been asking for a long time why Harry Diamond's his caddy and why someone else isn't. And now you have your answer, so that they could share that moment.
Yeah, and one thing that's worth mentioning, which Rory talked about, I think someone had asked him in his press conference, said, what did Harry say to you, after you missed that putt, on the 18th, on the 72nd hole? And he said, you know what, Rory, we would have taken this position on Monday. We would have quite happily been, going down the 18th hole for a playoff to win the Masters, right, to win the career Grand Slam, and that, who knows what that could have lifted his spirits. It's impossible to sort of put a value on that. But yeah, I think, like you say, a lot of people have got answers that he's given answers, hasn't he, to the questions that he's been asked.
And that again is, we all need our friends to say the right thing at the right time. And when you've got someone who's known you for 30 years, the chance of them saying the right thing is probably quite a bit higher. So yeah, for Rory, the things that Harry said will have been the right thing, and we know that because he knows him, and they genuinely are pretty much best friends. So again, really pleased for Harry. He seems like he's got a lot of class, I think, to not ever, like, some caddies covet the limelight a little bit, don't they? Some caddies, under the scrutiny he's faced, would have come out and done an interview with the Irish Independent or something and said, I'm fed up of this crap, no one knows what they're talking about. He didn't. He just got on with it. And I know Rory had a lot of their other friends were there, and I'm sure if you've not seen them, go and look at the video of Hollywood Golf Club. Forgive me if that's not the exact title of the celebrations there when that final putt went in.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, we probably need to move on from it, but oh my,
we should. There's obviously, we could talk for so much more, and I think we've agreed, haven't we, Ben? And maybe in future majors we might end up having some specials, some maybe pre-final round specials, or some kind of immediately after the event specials. We're still in our early days, aren't we? So we're still finding our feet, but in an ideal world, we maybe have a separate episode to discuss everything Masters related, and then we talk about the HotelPlanner Tour on a separate episode, the UAE Challenge, which was won by Renato Paratore.
Was it? I did know that. I did know that.
Yes. But let's move on to the world of golf this week. I mean, moving from the Masters to the Volvo China Open it's throwing me for a loop, I got to be honest. But yeah, it's on a new course, isn't it, Ben?
Well, if you don't mind, Sam, I feel the best way to move from the Masters and the reverence of the Masters and Augusta National to the Volvo China Open would be to read a poem, if you don't mind.
Please.
Flying in the clear night sky from Taiwan to Shanghai, Jackson Ling had a dream, a golf course of great esteem. The gears shift, dust flows free, the soil moves for golf to be, shaping features from the land, glazing it with crystal sand. We draw wonders from our pens, builders are our special friends. Oh, as anting becomes art from their work and their heart. Jackson made this is the last stanza, don't worry. Jackson made a golf course to play. Anting is his greenscape legacy. Sort of giving up on the rhyming there.
Well, yeah. And what happened at the end?
And well, this is the best bit. An evergreen park of chlorophyll, Shanghai's lungs to fill. That is a poem from the designer of whatever this golf course is called, Enhance Anting Golf Club, Robert Trent Jones Jr. And
that's a quote from him.
Yeah, that's his poem.
He's written that poem.
He's written that poem, designed a course, then wrote a poem about it, and used the word chlorophyll to rhyme with play. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. I'm sure we can appreciate. I mean, if you thought Augusta was sort of some sort of religious experience, well, get yourself to Enhancing Anting or whatever it's called, and
enhance Anting. Yeah,
draw up a haiku or something. Phenomenal.
We'll talk a bit about our fantasy picks shortly on this event. I'll just talk about some other events.
Sorry.
Right, PGA Tour is the PGA Tour is at the RBC Heritage. I'm just going to say I still think it's absolutely bonkers that we have a signature event the week after the Masters. I just can't compute this. Just put the Zurich Classic there. Put the Rocket Mortgage Classic there if you have to. Just something. Just give people a break.
Have a week off. Like even have a week off.
Yeah,
and as well, like the thing is, I know it's about the sponsors, and RBC have sponsored this and the Canadian Open. They've been a big partner of the tour, and the tour is trying to solidify these partnerships. I get it. Sometimes we have to accept things, you know, the reality of running a golf tour. But this is not good for anybody. And the other thing is that actually the RBC Heritage was perfect. It was a post-Augusta come down. Go and relax on Hilton Head. If you want to go. If you don't want to play, don't. The course is completely different. The atmosphere is completely different. We got some fantastic breakthrough winners. Wesley Bryan, CT Pan. You know, we had Luke Donald versus Matt Kuchar for 5 years, and it was fine. It was fine. And now they've made the best players in the world come, and it ruins it for punters. It ruins it for the players. They don't want to be there. It just shouldn't be happening. It shouldn't be happening. Rory was never entered. He chose not to enter this before. So anyone who thinks, oh, he's withdrawn or anything like that, no, he was never entered. He knows how nonsensical this is. So, yeah. Scheffler's favourite, Sam, as defending champion.
Yeah, and it's essentially, like you say, it kind of has ruined it a bit for punters, because it was one of those where you'd look at those kind of tidy players, wouldn't you? You know, those sort of players who are accurate off the tee. Maybe they can shake the ball a bit, good short games. And now you've got people like Scheffler in the mix, and it just makes it so much harder to pick out a Carl Pettersson or whatever. I just, that was my previous winner that I had God knows how long ago. Or even Brian Gay, that when he won like by 10 shots or something, you're not going to see that anymore, and it does make it a harder one to, because for all the players that you could make a case for, you've just got to remind yourself that you've got people like Scheffler, not just him. You've got obviously the likes of Morikawa is going to be there. Justin Thomas, I quite like this week. You're not going to get a huge price on him, but it's someone like that could potentially do something. And I personally like finding someone who has played decently at Augusta but hasn't been in contention. Would be ideal, I think.
Yeah, there's a bit of a mixed bag, isn't there? I mean, Scheffler is an outlier though.
Yeah.
Like Scheffler went back to back last year because he at the time was just out of his mind good. So of course he might win it again, but I don't think that really is instructive if you're trying to find the winner. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think Satoshi Kodera is the one who sort of stands out. Like he'd played way above expectations at Augusta, but nowhere near the lead. I don't know where he finished in the end, like 23rd or something like that. That's probably the ideal. I think the one people will gravitate towards will be Shane Lowry, because people will believe, as I do, that seeing Rory win the Masters could really help. I just, obviously he's had a good couple of chances to win this tournament. He did play really badly on Sunday. I just, he also might be drunk until at least Tuesday. So
this is a good point. The hangover factor needs to be considered if you're thinking of backing Shane Lowry.
He definitely didn't make his way to Harbour Town last night, did he? Let's face it. So yeah, look, I'm not talking anybody out of whoever they want to back, but it's a shame. It's a shame. Yeah. I'm still previewing it. Obviously, I'll still try and find an angle and find a winner, but I think we'd all be better off if they said to Scotty Scheffler, "You don't need to be here, mate. It's fine." And also, the other thing to point out here is that there is a limited amount of time between this and the next major championship, right? It's 4 weeks away. These guys don't want to spend they're probably going to play twice. Using one of them on this course, which is so unlike anything they're going to play in any other tournament this year, really, it's a waste of preparation time, as well as the fact that they're all fatigued. Yeah, rubbish.
The other two events I very, very briefly mentioned. Corn Ferry Tour is at the Lacombe Suncoast Classic. This is only significant, at least in my head, because Ben An won this a few years ago, which was sort of his springboard to get back onto the PGA Tour.
He's the LPGA type as well, Sam. Like you bombers.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The LPGA is the JM Eagle LA Championship.
Have you forgotten the Corrales Punta Cana here, Sam? I hope not.
Oh my God, I have completely forgotten a non-signature PGA Tour event, which is not like me. I apologise.
Well, it's the most fun betting event of the week, definitely. Yeah. One thing to note is I only had a quick look at the first show of betting, but Ben Griffin was joint favourite. He I think he's from South Carolina, isn't he? Well, he's first alternate for Hilton Head. Is he from North? I think he's from North Carolina. Anyway, it's a bit of a home game, Harbour Town, and he's first alternate. I would imagine he is not heading to the Dominican Republic as we speak.
He may be right.
I think he tweeted at Justin Rose like, "Oh, Justin, well played. You deserve a week off." And surely, like, there's a good chance Rose does withdraw. Someone, Ludwig, maybe after his 5-7 finish, someone's going to withdraw, you'd think, and Ben Griffin will get in. So
yeah, thank you for flagging that, Ben. That would have been a bad miss. I'm going to briefly mention our player tracker, because both of our players are in the field this week at the Volvo China Open. And the only thing I have to say, so Elvis is back in the field for starters, which have been weeks and weeks since he last played a DP World Tour event. And the PGA Tour of Australia posted something last week, and I don't know where this came from, whether he was just doing a practice round at home or something. I don't think it was a tournament, but anyway, they posted this graphic of him shooting 59 at Southport Golf Club. I don't know, like I say, I don't think this was a competition, whatever. But if someone is shooting 59 anywhere, then I'm going to pay attention to that.
I always remember Bubba Watson when he won the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. Right.
He had shot 59, hadn't he?
59, hadn't he? Some interactive posted it, and no, it doesn't matter. And then he won the Zurich Classic.
And then he won.
Yeah, and I think I have a terrible memory for these things, as in a bad waste of brain cells. Sam Horsfield, before he won at Forest of Arden, did he beat Thomas Dietrich at Forest of Arden? Is that right?
Possibly, yeah.
Or at Hanbury Manor. No, because Andy Sullivan won there. In the COVID events, he was Forest of something. I'm sure Sam Horsfield has shot like 54 in practice or something stupid, and then he went and won that. So, yeah, there you go. Yeah. Elvis is re-entered the building.
Right. We have to do our fancy picks, Ben, because we are... I mean, firstly, I would just say we don't have our Asian Swing leaderboard, which we're very sorry about. We were waiting to hear from the DP World Tour. They've obviously got some more pressing things to probably do, like graphics about McIlroy winning the Masters, so I completely forgive them. But...
So they have sent it to me, Sam. But the problem is, it doesn't have So we're definitely on it. They've just sent it to me.
Okay.
But it doesn't have I have to do a bit of Excel sorting and stuff. So we're gonna
we
post it somewhere.
We'll post it on our socials, so please look out for that, and we can update who's in prime position for the tickets. Leading overall is Lewis Blaine. Ben, very quickly, we need your picks.
Right, so Ibble. No, Rasmus Nygaard Peterson, who I haven't looked at the show betting. I presume he's favourite. Hao Tong Li. I don't know if you're familiar with Hao Tong, but he is from China, and this tournament, being the China Open, is taking place in China. By a similar token, Wen Yiding. Now, the world is going to back Wen Yiding for this golf tournament, right? I've spent the last 4 days, every free moment I've had, trying to translate China golf websites to find out whether he's been here in his life. I've found nothing. But Wen Yiding, he arrives, he's getting better every week. He's a potential superstar, of course. Connor Syme, can't remember why. I think he's playing okay. Martin Kuvra, he's got a decent record in China. And speaking of which, Ricardo Gouveia is a winner in China. I've actually tipped Gouveia a couple of times this year. I've just got this feeling about him that there might be a win for him this year.
He's been playing well, hasn't he, lately?
Yeah, I think he's putting everything together. It has to be the right circumstances because he's not a very good driver of the ball. My sense from this course is that second shots are going to be key. There's a lot of water guarding greens, but there seem to be generous fairways. But it's not it doesn't look like a bomber's paradise. So it could be a good course for him, but there is so much guesswork here. I'm going to captain Wen Yiding.
Okay. Well, I've joined you on the Nygaard Peterson. I've made him my captain. Couple of runner-ups recently. He is going to win soon. There's no question about it. Also, just very quickly mention, obviously, Robert Trent Jones Jr., who we discussed. You have to look at some other designs. He designed Lubko, which was hosted the Danish Golf Championship last year, and he's also designed Alcanada, which was the design for the Challenge Tour Grand Final. So, looking at those kind of events, possibly for some guidance. Wen Yiding, I've joined you on. Just makes sense. Iora, slightly surprised that he's not in your team, Ben. I think the course could suit, and he was runner-up at Alcanada last year. Romain Langasque, very solid runner-up at the Danish Golf Championship. Elvis Smiley, because he shot 59 last week. And my good friend Jakob Skov Olesen, who was tied 5th in the Danish Golf Championship last year and is a very good young lefty.
You've been all over him and you've been right. I'm beginning to have my head turned by him. Just a note on him that he played in the Georgia Cup the Sunday before the Masters, which
yes. How did he get on?
They let amateurs play in it, even if they've turned pro. So it was him against Jose Pissy Ballester, and the Spaniard won one up, I think. But yeah, that's where Jacob Skov Olesen was last weekend. But he's one to keep on the right side of, isn't he? Feels like the market hasn't got him in the same way it gets onto some young players like Wen Yiding.
Yes, I think you're
right.
right.
I feel like it's not on him yet. So
yeah. Right, Ben, we've got a few minutes left. So we're going to do highest bidder, and we're going to do another Masters themed one because we're still in Masters season, and a few people sent them over before last week. So I'm going to go straight into it. Danny Willett famously won the 2016 Masters. Outside of him, how many of the other top 10 finishers in that edition, the 2016 edition, can you name?
Sam, I think the answer is genuinely one. Let me have... I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm going to go for 3. What have you written down?
I've also done 3.
You have a crack. Go on,
okay,
I'll get it up. You have a crack.
Who knows? I could be wrong. Spieth.
Famously. Did he cling on for it? Yes, he did.
I'm hoping he did. He was definitely in it. I think
I'm not looking yet because I've got... Go on, keep going.
I think Francesco Molinari was there.
Oh, I don't.
You might just have to look it up, Ben. And
I'm going to look it up. I'm looking for it now. Now you've used your mulligan already.
Oh God! Okay.
But I would have used mine, so I would have said Ricky Fowler for some reason, and he wasn't there either.
He wasn't there. Okay.
You've got
right. I'm going to say in that case, 2016. I feel like Schwartzel was there again after one of his. Was he there? No.
We've ended on a terrible note here.
God.
No.
Oh dear.
Given that I've got it in front of me, I think you'll kick yourself over a couple, but I don't think I'd have got them even with time to think because it's just hard to align them with a year. It's not that I remember these things happening. So one thing that you'll remember is Matt Fitzpatrick shooting a final round 67 to finish 7th. Soren Kjeldsen was 7th.
Wow.
But probably where you've gone wrong is not just going for a few sort of Augusta specialists. Famously, McIlroy in 10th, Justin Rose in 10th, Jason Day was 10th, Brandt Snedeker 10th, and Daniel Berger. I think that was Berger's debut.
Right.
In 7th, Hideki Matsuyama again. You might have landed on him, I suppose. In 4th, JB Holmes, no recollection of that. Dustin Johnson, and Paul Casey. And in a tie for second, now this is the one I would have got, is Westwood and Spieth. Now, I remember Westwood, I think he was one behind Willett when they played the 16th. Like, it's sort of forgotten.
Yeah.
Westwood was beaten by 3 in the end.
No, quite right.
He shot a really good final round, but I do feel like he made a couple of late mistakes when Willett was making progress.
9 years is not that long, but it feels like an absolute age ago. I mean, I have no recollection at all of Soren Yeltsin being in the mix at the Masters, and definitely not JB Holmes. So
the interesting thing will be in 9 years, do we remember anybody else from this one? And I suspect we will, because it was a very high class leaderboard. But it will be quite easy to forget, that Xander snuck into the top 10, wouldn't it? Or Sung Jae Im. You'd easily forget Sung Jae Im. I wish I could. Yeah. Anyway, a naff effort. Nobody gets the points.
No points. And just to mention, I did put up your 5 points for last week, Ben. So you're in pretty good. You're in a good spot at the moment. I'll do a proper tot up before next week, and we got a bit more time because, I mean, really, this was the one week you didn't want to be running a sub 1 hour podcast. I'd have to say, but I think we just about managed to do it. It was a fantastic Masters. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as Ben and I did. We'll be back to normal programming next week. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you soon.